WNST, Towson, NFL messes that are fake football on Thursdays and Saturdays belie the fact that we still have like baseball going on, but it's late at night the last week and a half, and sometimes I'm a little lonely and angry and up late and wondering why I stayed up on a Friday night when things go awry in the land of Oak, especially when there's about friends and family, 3,000 people in the stands out there. But after Seattle, the Orioles will get back after it at home here against the Angels, as well as the A's next week. We welcome on long-time, long-suffering Orioles fan and also long-time former editor for Sporting News for all things Major League Baseball. He's now at Fansided. You can follow him at Twitter at JMcGuireMLB, and his pie trainer card and baseball and beer motif on his Twitter, as well as at Baseball Book Pod, where he talks to people who write baseball books. But we're here to talk Orioles baseball and try to have a little bit of fun and cut through all of the late-night baseball. Justin McGuire, welcome back on. Always a pleasure. And here we are again, and the Orioles are nowhere they haven't been, which is in the middle of somewhere. We're just not sure where that is, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the ultimate no man's land right now for the Orioles and for a lot of the American League teams in that second wild card slot. It's such a weird place to be because the Orioles are obviously not all that good, but they're not terrible either. And that's sort of the description of a bunch of these teams, the Twins, the Royals, the Angels, the Mariners. I mean, none of them are particularly good. None of them are particularly awful. So they're all kind of hovering right around 500. And that's right now, that's good enough to get you in the conversation with the second wild card. And so, here we are in, mid-August, and there's a bunch of teams that in ordinary circumstances would be well out of it, but they all kind of have hope because somebody's got to win it, right? And the Orioles are one of those teams. So you gotta at least have some hope at this point that they can maybe do something in these last 6-8 weeks of the season.
What the strangest thing is, you look up, and if you had been gone on a vacation on a boat and hadn't looked at the standings in 10 days, I mean, the Royals were the streaking team. Then the Mariners were the streaking team. Certainly Tampa Bay spent much of the year above 500, not below 500, and Minnesota had quit. I mean, they had cashed in at the table 2 weeks ago, and it's so topsy-turvy right now that I guess there is some interest in this, right, in all these places. Maybe not in Tampa, certainly not here once football starts, that people really do sort of sway away from baseball here. But I would think that it, as Luke Jones pointed out here, it's kind of like when a bunch of 8 and 7 teams get together in Week 16 of the NFL. Somebody's going to get that last wild card. You're not convinced it's a good team, but as this thing unfolds over the next 4 weeks, it's certainly going to be harder for Tampa and the Orioles playing more better teams than, let's say, Minnesota is in the Central, or certainly maybe more than the Angels and the Mariners are in the West.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Sox are certainly really good. I mean, I'm not convinced the Yankees are all that good, honestly. So I don't know that necessarily the East teams are going to be playing a lot of great teams other than the Red Sox. But yeah, it's certainly, there's a lot of capable teams in the East. Even the Blue Jays, who are kind of at the rear, aren't that far off the Rays and Orioles pace. And we know they have a lot of talent on that team. So yeah, I mean, the schedule going forward for the Orioles isn't favorable. They have a lot of at least decent teams left on the schedule, if not good. So that's going to certainly be to their disadvantage. But you never say no to a Buck Showalter team. I mean, he always somehow finds a way. So for them, the key is going to be, as it always is, it's going to be the pitching. I mean, they're scoring a lot of runs since the All-Star break. I mean, Manny Machado is hitting finally the way he's capable of hitting. Jonathan Scope's having a great year. Adam Jones has bounced back a little bit. And, Tim Beckham has been Babe Ruth on steroids.
Otherworldly, right? I mean, I think the last time I saw an infielder come up and do this was like Ripken back in, was it 87 or 89, whatever year Billy Ripken came up. He was like this sensation. Jim Traber was like that. But in a trade, I can't remember the Orioles ever making a trade in the middle of a campaign. It's usually like, Craig Lefferts or Lonnie Smith, or, there just been some horrible Kevin Bass, There was all of that going on. Gerardo Parra in the modern parlance. But this is the first time they've made that kind of a move and had a guy hit 500 for 2 weeks, right?
Well, let's see. Well, it's the first time anybody's ever done it. I mean, this is literally historically significant in terms of a player on a new team in a mid-year trade. Nobody's ever hit like this for this extended period of time. And it's such an odd trade, too, because they made it with a division rival that's also in the wild card hunt. It's kind, it's like when you never see a trade like that in the middle of the season. It's very odd, and the way Beckham's been hitting has been unbelievable. Nobody expected this, but and obviously he can't keep up this pace. But the question is he a better hitter than he has been, indicated in Tampa? And I think there's some reasons to believe that maybe he is going to be a more capable offensive player. If you look at his numbers, he was always a better hitter outdoors than in that dome. His career numbers are significantly better when he plays outside. And so, as an Orioles fan, you got to hope that means something, that, now that he's playing the vast majority of his games outside, that maybe he is going to be an impact offensive player. And certainly he brings speed to the team that they don't have otherwise. And he's been a big, good jolt for them and helped them. He's a big part of the reason that they're scoring a lot of runs now. And if they can continue that, if they can continue scoring runs, they got a shot. They just got to make sure that, they don't give Chris Tillman any more starts, I think.
It's stuff like this, though, when he comes over that really sort of highlights whatever the genius that Dan Duquette has, right? I mean, whatever that has allowed him to identify a baseball player. Yeah, there's some Travis Snyders in there and whatnot, but, the Miguel Gonzalez and the Wei-Yin Chens and the ability to maneuver around and bring in some players, even Trumbo, over the last couple of years. And, look, I think if it were Duquette's money, Chris Davis wouldn't have gotten it. That I think that's pretty obvious to anyone that's witnessed this over a quarter of a century, or even read half of one chapter of the Peter Principles that I've been working on here over the last couple of years. But Duquette does have some otherworldly, they call it savant, right? Baseball savant about him in some way, and certainly he remembers the pedigree of a number 1 overall draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that he was, those numbers I just told you, the difference in offensive production outside of the dome. I'm certain he was aware of that, for instance, and I'm sure he's aware of a lot of more things that you and I aren't privy to. And Dan Duquette is a longtime baseball man, and while we can certainly criticize him for a lot of the things he's done in Baltimore, he's also done some good things in Baltimore, and he's done a lot of good things elsewhere. I mean, he was a general manager of the Expos and the Red Sox, and when those teams had success and when those teams had great farm systems. So yeah, he is somebody who can identify talent. I think that's not a talent he's lost. So yeah, you got to give him credit for this. This is a good trade so far, and even when Tim Beckham comes back to earth, I think it has potential to be a good trade, because I think he's your shortstop now. J.J. Hardy's on his last legs. You're not going to see J.J. Hardy starting for the Orioles anymore. It's shortstop, I don't think.
Justin McGuire covers all things baseball and has forever as a former editor at Sporting News on the MLB side, now doing it at Fansided. He also has a baseball book pod. Look, I'll get back to the Orioles in a minute, but I want to talk a little book with you here, and we'll circle back on Bryce Harper and where the pennant races are and all the other things going on with the Birds. But baseball books, I'm in the middle of releasing one of them right now, and I know, John Eisenberg released a book last month. I've had him on. You've had him on. Are we still seeing baseball books being produced the way they once were? I mean, to my way of thinking, and I'm a guy who's written several books now. I remember having my football book, Purple Rain 2, after the Ravens won this championship, and I had all this access, and I had a 500-page book with all these incredible stories that were never told before and haven't been told since. And I had a lot of fans, and maybe this speaks to our politics, I think, which is on the same line as well, that I had so many fans say, I don't read new books no more. And then I'm thinking, if I were to publish the Peter Angelos book in a bound book, how many people really care to read about the pain and the almost laughable foolishness of the Orioles organization over the last 25 years? I don't know that people want to pay $24.95 to read that, and I see books and authorship is sort of going the other way in our country. It's very, very sad to me, being a guy who writes, but I wonder how much money a book can make at this point for everyone, for the publisher, for the writer, for the guy that glues the pages together. I can tell you this, I did not make any money on my second book, and I put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak to the business side of it because I don't deal with that, but and I certainly think it's true. The vast majority of these people writing these books aren't making any money at all, or if they are, it's not very much.
It's a labor of love, right? It's like
right, yeah. For most of the guys I talk to and gals I talk to, yeah, they're doing it because they love it, and they're doing it because it's a topic that really interests them. And they're not making any money off. And I won't name names, but I've talked to one guy who, he published a book for a major publisher. It was very well received, got great reviews. It was a great book. I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was very well done. A lot of original. I mean, it wasn't just one of these slapdash books. It involved a lot of original reporting and writing and things. And he said, "No, I didn't make a cent off it." And I think that's probably fairly typical of the genre. Now I will say this: doing this now, there is no shortage of baseball books being published. I can tell you that. I'm up to 60-some episodes now.
Well, there's no barrier to publishing, right? I mean, I am publishing the Peter Principles. I'm 12 chapters in. I've written over 100,000 words on the topic already, 12 chapters in, and it's just sitting there. I mean, and I wrote it, and you can go read it, and I'm sure there's a million guys like me writing a million things. So, I guess from that perspective, it's still sort of out there, but then it becomes like, I put a lot of effort, a lot of hours into writing the book, and, the payoff's going to be, whatever eyeballs I get on the web and people saying nice things and whatever, but I did not feel like, having it printed and dealing with books and bringing them in, because I just didn't think that it would work like that. I don't think life works the same way it did 30 years ago when my dad was lining up to buy Bronx Zoo. All right?
No, I mean, there's going to be, in any given year, I would guess there's a handful of baseball books that are going to make some money. Some of the Tom Verducci's book on the Cubs that came out this year about their World Championship year. I'm sure a lot of Cubs fans bought that, and that probably made money. The vast majority, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of them. A lot of them that I talk to, they're published by these small kind of niche publishers. McFarland and the University of Nebraska Press and some of these others that do a ton of baseball books, but they're not, not the big publishers. These are not books you're going to find at Barnes & Noble generally. And I can't imagine they're making a ton of money, but again, I don't know. I'm not privy to the economics of it, but they certainly give a lot of writers opportunities to write books. I'll put you that way. So, but the question is, so I guess the answer is, yeah, there's a ton of baseball books being published every year still, and I suspect that that's because the audience for books is going to tend to be older people, right? And the older people.
That includes me now. I feel good about that.
Well,
thanks, bro.
Definitely includes me too. And that's the baseball demographic. I mean, there's a reason there's a lot more baseball books out there than like NBA books, even though the NBA is the sport of the young people now. Young people aren't buying books, like middle-aged guys like us maybe are though, And so that's probably why you see so many baseball books. But as to whether they are making any money, you'd have to talk to the publishers.
Oh, sure, yeah. I can almost promise you they're not. Justin McGuire is J. McGuire MLB, and his baseball book pod is at Baseball Book Pod out on Twitter to catch up with him. What's your favorite baseball book? Just by the by, I know mine is Seasons in Hell by Mike Shropshire about the Texas Rangers. That's my all-time favorite sports book.
Yeah, that's a great book. I think, I mean, my answer probably it's one of those things that changes on a day-to-day basis, but the one I always go back to is The Glory of Their Times by Lawrence Ritter, which is, an oral history of players who played in basically dead ball era, early 20th century guys. He wrote it in the 60s when those guys were old men, but they were still alive, most of them. And it's just they talk about their experiences playing, the teams in 1910s, and it's just extremely well done, extremely well written, and it's just a great read. It's the kind of book you pick up and you're not going to want to put it down because he just really keeps it flowing very well. That's probably my all-time favorite book. And unfortunately, he has passed away, so I can't have him on the podcast because that would be probably my number one, other than maybe Jim Bouton. That would be my number one person I'd want to get on there if I could.
See, I was going to say to you, most guys say, Ball 4, or they say Bronx Zoo, or they have some other book that they like, that was a baseball book. Mine's a little esoteric, but mine had a lot of comedy and a lot of the baseball cards that I traded as a kid, from Ted Williams straight on through, Toby Hurrah, for crying out loud, and Fergie Jenkins.
Yeah, I mean, that's a book a lot of people mention that when I ask them about their favorite books. A lot of people love that book. Yeah, it's not quite as famous as the others, but the people who've read it really love it.
Seasons in Hell by Mike Shropshire. I actually had Shropshire on about 8 years ago to talk about Seasons in Hell, and I felt like it was the greatest get of all time. I mean, I felt like I had Rembrandt on the show, you know. But
so I should try to get him to.
He is Justin McGuire. Let's get back to baseball on the field. Where are you with the Orioles right now? Like, what is this prescription where they play 6-10 ball for 3 weeks? Because that's what it's going to take, right? It's going to take some team sort of kind of going 20-12 or something like that for a little period. That's where it's going to be, because no one's going to run off what the Dodgers did or what the '84 Tigers did. No one's going to win 20 out of 24 in this group that I can tell.
No, I don't think so either, because, I mean, these teams just don't really seem like they're built that way. None of them are that good. They're like we were saying earlier, there's just a lot of 500 teams in the league right now, you know. Yeah, so I agree with you. In fact, I saw something yesterday or today that was speculating the second wild card slot could easily go to an 81 and 81 team. So, I mean, that's
a weird thing, dude. I don't know how that would. The only way that would happen is if all these teams get their asses kicked by the better teams, right? Or even the worst teams, I guess, too, right? I mean, if the White Sox chip away and beat you a couple times, I mean, it would really take an incredible suppression of even ordinary baseball for that to happen at this point, right?
Well, I mean, I think, if you look at where the teams are right now, it would basically take most of these teams just playing the way they've played so far. To play at 500 and nobody to have that breakaway stretch like you talked about. I suspect you're right. Somebody will do that. One of these teams, like maybe it'll be the Royals, maybe it'll be the Twins. I go through these teams and none of them seem capable of it.
Well, the Royals are the scary team because all their guys have done this before. So, from a confidence level, they're the most dangerous team. Maybe the Orioles you'd say that about the Orioles if somehow their pitching would hold up. But, I mean,
the Orioles probably have the most dangerous offense in that group. But certainly the Mariners have pretty terrible pitching too. The Angels have, I was reading something today. Albert Pujols is having a historically bad year, and he's batting cleanup for them. I mean, it's just like there's none of these teams are very good.
Dude, they had Parker Bridwell, so they get all the bonus points there in L.A.
Yeah. So anyway, so where the Orioles are right now is I think they got to put themselves in a position where they say, we didn't sell. Well, the team has, the ownership has said, well, go for it, and they just got to go for it. I mean, that there's no other choice at this point except to try their best to get that second wild card slot. And again, I think it could happen. I think they're capable of, winning the 83 or 84 games it's going to take to get there. But it's going to take, the offense continuing to hum along like this, and the pitching is just going to have to be better. It's been better since the All-Star break, but it's probably going to need to be even better than it's been. You're going to need to get Gossman and Bundy to be consistently good. You're going to need Brock to stop, coughing up leads. Britton to really pit, he hasn't had a ton of save opportunities, but when he does have them, he's going to need to really step up.
Yeah, there's nothing with him that I look and say that looks like the old Britton, right? Yet, right? I
feel like it hasn't had the opportunities, though. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like they don't play a lot of close games. Like they don't have a lot of close leads. When they win, they're winning by a lot. Honestly, I don't even know how many true save opportunities he's had since he's been back, but it's not like it usually is with him where he's in there every night, it seems like. Like last year, they just seemed like they had a lot of 1- and 2-run leads in late innings, and that doesn't seem to be the case this year. They're either losing by 1 or 2 or they're ahead by 5, it seems like. But anyway, you don't know what you're going to get with him because he just hasn't pitched enough. But it's going to take them getting hot and reeling off a 8 wins in 11 games kind of thing. And if they do that, they got a good chance. If they just continue to tread water, probably not. And, let's face it, even if they do get the second wild card, how much confidence do we have they're going to go very far? I certainly wouldn't have much.
Well, the other thing is they're just a much better team at home. Once they get back from the West Coast here, they got 10 days of home cooking. They're going to see the Red Sox before this is all over with. And, this would be when they come home and the ball's flying out and it's heated up, that's when they're at their best. That's when they can put an 8-2 together in a 10-game homestand.
True. Definitely true. Yeah, it's not going to happen on the road. They're going to have to take advantage of those home games for sure.
Justin McGuire joining us here. He is at Fansided and at Twitter at JMcGuire, McGuiremLB, out on Twitter as well as at Baseball Book Pod. Last thing, anything you want to say on the Bryce Harper base thing? Just, is that baseball at this point? I mean, it seems to me, and I've stood on those bases, there's nothing about them that's natural if you're trying to run a 4.3, 40 and get down the baseline or slide into it, other than it doesn't give much. It's a long time coming, and when Bryce Harper trips over, and obviously we believe at this point it's not going to wreck his season or the national season, but it's a talking point this week for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that play the other night, I was just holding my breath because I as a baseball fan, I think baseball really needs Bryce Harper to be in the postseason. You know what I mean? They really need, his star power, because there aren't that many players left who have star power, and I think he's one of them. So I was really, holding my breath. And now it's looking better than it looked. It looks like there's a chance he'll certainly be back. It seems like it was kind of a flukish thing, kind of a freakish thing, but the base was probably wet from all the rain they were having, and that's always when you get into trouble. I think is when you play despite a bunch of rain, and that's we can get into a whole bunch of stuff I'm sure you don't want to get into about these uneven schedules where teams just don't travel to other cities enough, so they have to play in these bad conditions because they aren't going to be back.
Oh, and it's so unfair to the fans. I mean, look, the players are getting paid millions of dollars. They're going to sit there and play cards and play pinochle during a rainstorm. It's something else. But the way Major League Baseball abuses the fans who buy the tickets, especially the ones that are coming in from Hagerstown or Westminster or Cecil County or the Eastern Shore on a Wednesday night, they got their tickets. They want their bobblehead or whatever the hell it is. But to not know whether the game's going on or off, and look, I hate these domes and I hate all that stuff, but there has to be something that looks like, look, it's 4 o'clock, we're either going to play this thing and you're going to get in the car, not we're going to chase you downtown when the weather map's awful and try to hit you up for parking and hit you up for a hot dog and a beer. It's out of hand, and I know the Nationals got, raked about it a couple of months ago, and I've been on the Orioles about it, but it's a Major League Baseball issue. It's, weather's there, it's real, and they don't do a very good job with it, by and large, in making you, as a fan, have a decent taste about it in your mouth. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I think, especially where you are in Baltimore and Washington, it's like, in the summertime, you get so many of these storms that just kind of are bad, but pass through so quickly, and then maybe you get an hour gap, but there's another one coming. Can we get a couple innings in? And I don't want to be too harsh because I think they do have to, weigh a lot of factors when they're doing that. But yeah, it is, as a fan, it's certainly not a great experience. And again, I think with the base thing with Harper, that's probably the main issue was just the base was wet. And they just need to be real careful about that kind of stuff. But if you have your one of your premier superstars injured in a tore his ACL and something like that, you're gonna have to explain it. So this is probably gonna cause them to think about like some of these weather issues and some of these issues with the base. Like the base itself, I don't know what you could change because I don't think the problem was with the base necessarily as much as it was with the water on the base, but. Yeah, I mean this is the kind of thing that makes change. Like the Buster Posey thing a few years ago. This is the kind of thing that will make them change the way they do things if they feel like it's going to put their star players at risk.
Same reason when you go back and watch the 1970s, Fred Lynn is crashing into anchor fences, right? Like chain link fences. They stopped that stuff. So for the good of the game, as they say. Justin McGuire is out of Fansided. He is doing it for the good of the game. All things Major League Baseball. And at heart, I always point this out about you. You're like a real Oriole fan, which is why I love having you on so much. So we'll send everybody out to the Baseball Book Pod to follow along. I know you've had John Eisenberg on. You're real pleased with that. There's a whole Oriole angle for that one, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was, I enjoy most of the conversations I do, but that one just in particular, sitting for 45 minutes to an hour talking a lot about Cal and talking about the streak and my memories of it and his memories of it. And it was just a very fun conversation. And like I said, a lot of these conversations are fun, but the ones that involve the Orioles are particularly fun to me. So,
all right, well, look, next time I have you on, I'm going to have you tell me your stories of Cal Ripken and the streak, and I'll tell mine.
Sure.
Because that'd be fun. That'd be a fun conversation.
But yeah. Absolutely.
We'll do that the week of September 5th and 6th. How about that? That way it'll be it'll be time sensitive. Okay. I'll hit you 3 weeks. We'll do that. It'll be fun. I'll get Eisenberg around here too because he's covering the football team too. And it's been nice talking baseball with you for 20 minutes because it takes my mind off of Joe Flacco not being able to stand right now.
Well, anytime.
See you later, Justin. Justin McGuire. He is Jay McGuire, MLB, out on Twitter, as well as at Baseball Book Podcast on Twitter as well. You can find me in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. We come in crystal clear from wherever you are. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox every morning at 7 a.m. It's free. It's digital. It's got headlines in it. It's pretty good. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Last but never least, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. You can always email me, nasty@WNST.net. We also have our big Ravens trip to Wembley and London. We're throwing a big party on Saturday afternoon. We'd love to see you at our event as we are doing a Purple Sky takeover on the Emirates cable car that travels over the Thames. It's pretty cool. We're going to be doing that on Saturday afternoon. We hope that you come and join us. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.